Hi, my name is Dr. Rachel Ann Behling, and this is another episode of Life's Beautiful Synergies. Today we're going to be talking about AI, and I'm coming from a place of working for a pretty big organization where this is part of the trends of how we're bringing AI into the daily lives of technicians and other folks in IT. We're going to talk a little bit about tips and tricks and best practices, the fear of adoption of AI, and how it's becoming so prevalent in every part of our lives, whether personal or at work. So join me as we step into another episode of Life's Beautiful Synergies. So let's dive into this topic. When we think about AI in the workplace, it's going to bring a feeling of change. It's going to bring a different way of doing work. It may even bring in a totally different job scope to many of us in the industries that we're in. So sometimes we think about the technology itself and maybe the trepidation or the anxiety of, will I be able to understand the technology? Will I be able to adapt to it? It's so new. And so sometimes the adoption or that fear when new technology comes into your workplace is simply just the fear of, am I smart enough? Am I going to be able to adapt to it? Is it going to be an easy enough technology that I can actually still keep being successful in the place that I work, even with this new introduction into what I do every day? Second piece is about just the fear of all that change, right? So sometimes it's not the technology. Maybe we're not necessarily so afraid of learning a new skill or a new task. But how is it really going to change what I do when I walk in the morning, sit down at my desk, and just engage with my customers, my client, and my team? So that second part could be equally as needing to be adjusted to as the change in the technology itself. So these are just a couple examples of things that we need to think about when technology is coming in and that whole AI piece. And think about which part of it we're the most concerned about, and then figuring out specific strategies actually to adjust ourselves to both the technology and the change that it brings in our work environment. When we think about AI at work, there's also all of the media. There is so much out there of what AI can do, what AI will do. Some of it is in inspiring us to think bigger and bolder about the capabilities and the opportunities. But some of it is kind of triggering some fear in the marketplace. So how do you balance between being excited about how AI can help you and influence what you do every day, and not getting caught up in all the media hype of how it could become way bigger? And we've all seen we've all seen the movies that kind of entice some of this fear and what's going on in the media. So my advice is, do your research. Dig into it, ask those questions, see what is the flip side of some of those excitements and some of those maybe more fearful things that are being advertised in the media. My take on it is always to be the most informed person, and that will help to reduce some of that anxiety. I think one of those fears that we're hearing more and more of in the media is how could big businesses handle and take care of and mitigate the fear in the workplace that AI is going to take our jobs, that humans will no longer be necessary for so much of what we do today. And I think my approach there and what I'm thinking top of mind is that it's really important that we think about AI won't be taking our jobs. People that adapt to AI will be taking our jobs. So being able to figure out what is your human superpower, how can AI help that, and how can you continue to develop the skills and the agility in what you do and how fast you learn to keep up with the trends in the marketplace. Don't just ignore it and hope that it goes away, because AI is here to stay. And the more that we can think about what is my skill set already in the marketplace and how can it be enhanced by all the things that are coming out, that's how we can make sure that the humans continue to do the things that humans need to do and not get displaced by a robot or a program. So the next topic is about that transparency that is so necessary for us leaders in tech when we're introducing new technology into our team's daily workflow. We have to be very intentional about why the technology is coming. Because one, we don't want our teams, we don't want our peers to be thinking, oh man, if I adopt this, is this going to replace my job? Like, is that the intention of bringing in this technology, is so that we could start addressing headcount cuts. So it's really, really important for leaders in technology and business, both big and small, to be very transparent about, hey, we have this new technology and this is the intention. Team, come test it, come play with it, come practice it, come tell us how this could help your daily work so that you can spend less time in the muck and more time in the magic, whether that's if you're customer and product support, whether you're directly contacting with customers or clients, but really helping your teams understand that this technology is intended for them to be able to shift what they do so that they're spending more time on the things that really bring in value to your organization instead of more of the mundane things that is usually the reason that AI is brought in the first place. So really, really important that tech leaders and all business leaders are very, very mindful about being transparent about the how and the why and the what of bringing technology to the workplace. So a great example of AI in the workplace to really help the humans do what they need to do to be more effective at work is within an incident response team. So think about if there's an issue and something needs to be fixed. Instead of the human having to go look in 10 or 12 different places to find different knowledge, different troubleshooting steps, different things that other technicians have done in the past, with AI, months and months and months and thousands of documentations can be summarized in the blink of an eye for that technician and put together in a way that that technician, instead of spending all those hours and hours to try to find how to solve the problem for their end user or their customer, AI gives it to them in the blink of an eye so that they can quickly go back to that customer and solve that problem for them so that customer can get back up and running. So this is just one very simple example of how using AI can help our teams get back into the game and helping to do the things that really bring out their superpowers. So we just spent a little bit of time talking about how to incorporate AI into your everyday work life. But now let's think about the flip side of that. So how, after spending all that time working and focusing on how to bring technology into your daily life, how do you then set the boundaries to make sure that all that time and effort that you're spending at work, that you still have very healthy boundaries between what you do all day at work and the other responsibilities that you have outside of work? So one specific tip is to make sure that your calendar, that you have at least one of your maybe many calendars that reflects the whole synergy of everything that you do together. So I know sometimes we have a work calendar, then we have a home calendar, and then you go home and on the fridge is maybe your family calendar. But consider putting that all together in one view. Consider using AI to do that. There's many great applications out there. But considering having one calendar that shows you from the time you wake up in the morning to the time you go to bed and the whole 7 days, including your 5-day work week and your weekends, so that you can really see when one day, 1 week, or even a part of your week is really overbalanced with either too much personal or too much work, so that you can see very visually when you need to make those adjustments. Because a swing either way is going to put your life out of balance. So the suggestion here in the tip is to find some way to have at least one view that keeps all of what you do every day in one place so you can see how balanced you truly are. So along those same lines, let's talk about a couple strategies to make sure that you're not sacrificing your own personal goals and your own work-life balance in order to hit those high-performance goals that you may have within your own organization. So I'd say tip number one, make sure you are really clear about the things that are important to you, whether they are personal or whether they're at work. For instance, I'm an avid marathon runner. So to me, being able to map out and block the time that I need to run and train and actually run a marathon is really important for me. So I will plan that out already and build my day around it. The second thing is mental health. So being able to have an already planned and thought through way that you're going to unwind, decompress with whatever your work brings you, that's something that needs to be already thought through before you start feeling stressed or before you start feeling like you really need to decompress. So those are just 2 tips on how to just make sure that you don't get caught up in all of the energy and the pressure of your work, and making sure that you still are prioritizing yourself equally as you do your career. So a question that I get asked all the time is the tech industry any more demanding or looking for high performance than maybe some other industries? I've been in multiple industries, and I would tell you that the difference with tech is the pace and the expectations, because of the speed by which new technologies are constantly coming into the industry. So yes, there is going to be a different level of adaptability, of adoption, and to be perfectly honest, of sacrifice. There's going to be times when it's not always going to be a very easy, simple balance of just managing your calendar and making sure that you have just amount of time to be with the family as you will to be at your work. There could be quite often cycles of feast and famine. So there may be some time where you have emergencies at home that you need to take care of. You need to take care of maybe sick or ailing family member, or you might have other things that really pull your attention, where in another time there may be programs or projects that you have to work longer. You have to work more hours. You have to be there in the evenings, early mornings, and even on the weekends because you have teams relying on you. So it really is making sure that you're having that skill of being able to prioritize. And I think that's the differentiator, is regardless of the industry that you're in, but in tech, you may be challenged with the skill a little bit more often, but being able to step back and being able to prioritize and know when to do what, when you need to step away, but when you just need to be super gritty and persevere and get something across the finish line. So a question that I get asked all the time is, given the fast pace of the tech industry, and especially with everything going on with AI, is burnout inevitable or is it avoidable? So let's dig into both of those. So let's talk about the inevitableness of burnout and how to recognize it. So are you finding yourself being super irritable? Do you find yourself running out of energy or steam before the day is even close to being over? Do you find yourself getting really, really tired and just wondering, wow, how is this hour ever going to end, or this meeting ever going to end? Those are some signs that you may be approaching burnout. And I'm going to tell you, when that happens, it's really important to step back and find your why. All of us in IT have that next level of fear of letting people down. And that is a real phobia in the tech industry. So when you're starting to feel that sense of burnout and that tiredness, I'm going to invite you to take that moment to find your why. Like, why are you bringing this technology into your company? Why are you helping people to adopt a new capability or keep the infrastructure safe? Whatever your role is in the tech world, find your why. And I'm going to almost promise you that that's going to help you to pause that burnout button and get yourself back into delivering what brings you into work every day. So the other part of that is, once you're already down that path and you're finding yourself in that phase of burnout, how do you get yourself back into what we're just talking about, which is finding your why? So some tips on how to get yourself out of those phases is Do you have anybody on your team that could benefit from learning the technology that maybe you've been doing for a while and you're starting to find it very, very mundane? Or is there another application of what you have already become an expert on that is bringing AI into your industry that you can start educating yourself more or going out and learning more about that specific capability that could ignite you and, like I said, bring you back to that why? So there's multiple things that you can do to get yourself out of those burnout phases. If you weren't able to catch yourself before you got there, but you really need to get back to a place where you're excited to go in and do what you do every single day. A great question is, how do you consistently stay updated on the latest technologies and trends? This is a full-time job all by itself in some industries, but there are some really effective ways for you to accomplish this. First is, what associations are you part of? Are you part of any groups? Are you part of any networks? And do you attend local conferences? I can almost promise you that right now, in most cities around the country, around the world, there are multiple networking opportunities as well as conferences that bring in like-minded people that really have that passion for the different pieces of the industry that you may be in. So those are some really great ways, without having to spend a whole lot of money or doing a whole lot of research, to be part of the same conversations and communities, your tribe that is thinking and talking and curious about the same kind of things that will help you to stay both competent and curious and on the cutting edge of the technologies in your capabilities and in your superpower. So the flip side of being on the cutting edge of knowing what's going on, what's out in the industry, what is your community and tribe knowing and talking about and curious about in your technological space, there's also some discipline that needs to be brought into that curious nature. You could also take that too far and spend too much time learning and finding out and always paying a lot of time and attention to what's coming next. You got to balance that with taking the things that you're hearing and seeing and being able to not always be on the cutting edge of something, but being able to balance that with how much you can consume, how much do you really need to be on the cutting edge of that. And what I mean by that is, spend an equal amount of time of your time and energy with bringing it in and actually using it in your job and bringing it into your team or what you do every day. Because if you're constantly just looking at what's next, but you don't spend any time adopting those ideas, then you're not making your home space, whether it's at work or at home, you're not making it any better from what you're learning. So that's what I'm encouraging you to do, is to find that balance between your curiosity and what's going on out there, but how much you can truly consume and bring into what you're doing on the job. So as I think about that work-life balance and being very mindful of career opportunities, things that are coming to you through your profession at your work, and having that balance between mental health and taking care of yourself, there's always going to be a trade-off. I, for one, had a recent example where I really needed to be with friends and family, and I had to bypass a big presentation at work. Sometimes the trade-off, it seems really heavy in the moment, but me being, for instance, for me, it was a major surgery for my dad. For me, that was something that I couldn't imagine if I had missed and the surgery hadn't gone well. I couldn't imagine not being there for my dad. But I gave up what seemed like a very important presentation after months and months of working on a project. I wasn't going to be there for the 22 minutes of being on stage. And I would say that in the moment, it felt like I was making a career-ending decision. But actually, when you have the right mindset and the trade-off is as big as being there for a family member, it won't feel that bad on the back end when at the end of the day, don't miss out on really critical times in your family and your personal life because of something at work. Now, there may be times when work also demands that you need to be there and you have to sacrifice some personal time with family, but it's knowing what is really important at your core value when you need to be there for those really big events for your family that you need to make those decisions. So I want to encourage you to always think through that in the moment of how important it is for you to stand up to those values and those principles. Yeah, so a great question is, how do you decide? How do you decide what are those big, those important moments with family and friends that you need to show up for versus things that are just nice to haves? You have to already have that decision already made. So for instance, for me, one of my core principles is that I am there for my family for the events that matter. But sometimes it's hard to know what events matter for your family, or do you just think they matter? So one thing that I did a couple of years ago was I asked my brothers and sisters, what are the things that are important? I asked my nieces and nephews, and what they came back was weddings, funerals, graduations, big or small graduations, it doesn't matter. High school, a promotion at work that has a big graduation ceremony. Those were the kind of things that they came back to and said, these are the things that really, really matter that you're there for. The other stuff, maybe the parties, the things that are more, happen maybe more frequently, maybe those aren't as important, but they were able to really give me a good gauge of the things that they would really want me to step away from work and be there, as opposed to just calling and saying, hey, congratulations. So sometimes you by yourself may not be able to make that prioritization, but if it's with family and friends, I would strongly suggest that you ask them, what are the things that are really important that I show up in your life for? You may be surprised by the answer. So in today's episode, we talked about the fear of AI taking over our roles. We talked about the importance of transparency, of bringing in AI into our teams, into our work lives. We also talked a little bit about burnout and how to find that balance, how to prioritize, and how to get yourself out of those burnout phases if the pressure and the intensity of the industry that you're in is driving you to a place of feeling those signs of burnout. We also talked about some tips on how to prioritize and making sure that you're making those good decisions of where to be for those special moments with friends and family, as opposed to those times when you really need to just be extra gritty at work to achieve those goals and those expectations in your high-performing career, especially in the tech industry. So as we wrap up today's call, I want to encourage you to share any of the ideas that you might have for any of these topics today. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of Life's Beautiful Synergies.